Hello again. Another pair of answers to a interesting question. This one of historical interest, principally, and it's this: did Charles I deserve to die? As I'm sure most people know, Charles I was executed in London in 1649. He was convicted of treason during a very contentious legal process, and after a very violent and destructive civil war. It ushered in after the revolution and the execution, it ushered in the Commonwealth, an interregnum between 1649 and 1660, during which time Britain was run by Oliver Cromwell, the Lord Protector. After Cromwell died and his son vacated the job he succeeded to, the son of Charles II, was restored to the throne, and the line then continued, presumably to this day. There were very strong views on both sides of this. There's a Charles I Society who defends his honor. There were a lot of people that didn't like him, so let's get right at the points of view. Okay, first of all, yes, he deserved to die. Now, what are the reasons people thought that? Well, for one thing, and this would have been anathema to some people, he decided to marry a Catholic. The Catholic was Henrietta Maria, a daughter of the King of France, and her mother was Mary de Medici, and so she took her name from her mother. Incidentally, she was known in England, much to her objection, as Queen Mary, and it was after her that the province, colony, and eventually state of Maryland in the U.S. was named. Just a little trivial item. The other interesting thing about Henrietta Maria is that she was married to Charles in Paris by proxy. I guess Charles was too busy or too lazy or something to go to Paris to actually marry her. And so there was a blessing service after she arrived here in England at Canterbury Cathedral, here in Canterbury. And the music for that service was prepared and organized by the very famous composer of the day, Orlando Gibbons. And he worked so hard doing it that he died while he was in the cathedral, so there's a nice memorial in the cathedral to him. Anyway, that's all as an aside. The problem of marrying a Catholic was, in those days, very bad news indeed. Number two, Charles played fast and loose with Parliament. He really didn't want any part of Parliament. He convened it as seldom as possible, went through one period of 11 years when Parliament was not called together, and he only wanted Parliament for his need for money, particularly for military purposes. So the stage was kind of set for Charles against Parliament, and in a way, part of the difficulty that this reflected was his sense of arrogant entitlement. He didn't need anyone else. He, of course, had been imbued by his father, James I, of the notion of the divine right of kings. Incidentally, the slogan of which, Dieu est mon droit, continues to this day. It implies that the king, the monarch, has a direct line to God and answers only to God and doesn't have to answer to anybody else, and therefore why should he bother with Parliament? So that's enough to get people a bit exercised as well. At an emotional level, I suppose the greatest objection to Charles was that in his insistence that he have his own way, many Englishmen were killed. Once again, it's this same nasty business that arises from time to time. We've seen it with William the Conqueror. We saw it with others in that job who take the view that I don't care how many people I have to kill, I'm going to defend my position. Quite unpleasant. So here we have a man who carried arrogance and a sense of entitlement to new extremes. Quite unpleasant. So that's really the case against Charles I. But what about those who defend him? There are very strong views on this subject, and the people who support him have a special society with annual meetings and ceremonies and festivals and so forth. So his cause continues to this day. In his last days, the final breakdown in communication between Charles and Parliament, the supporters say, was not Charles' fault. It was Cromwell's fault. When those members of Parliament came in to discuss his fate, those who supported him were kept out by force. So it was not by any manner of means a parliamentary process that led to his conviction and ultimately to his execution. It can also be said that he was led astray by his very arrogant and opinionated Archbishop of Canterbury, William Laud. And Laud was a man who did as he pleased. Ecclesiastically, he imposed the English Book of Prayer and the traditional old school ancien regime church rituals and so forth on the rest of England and on the Scots. And that angered a lot of people. So Laud himself was a real troublemaker and obviously swept Charles along with him. For his trouble, incidentally, Laud got himself executed. The upshot of all of this is that Charles I was a martyr. He died with dignity, he died elegantly, and for his trouble, he was made a saint by the Church of England. I believe the only saint the Church of England has actually anointed, beatified. So there it is. So there were a lot of kind of defense statements and reasons for the support of Charles. Some of which was that it really wasn't his fault, that he was fooled, led astray, and so forth. But at the end of the day, what really cooked his goose was his arrogance and his unwillingness to consider anything less than supreme authority. Well, what's my take on all of this? Well, I have to say that the history of England, since even before the Magna Carta, has been one of constant negotiation of the consent of the governed. Kings find they can go so far and no further, and there have been ups and downs. Henry VIII pushed it a bit too hard, but this was the final nail in the coffin of the king as an absolute ruler. So this did represent quite a watershed point in English history. And so the lesson that really had to be learned here is that when people in Charles's position push it too hard, push it too much in their own interests, in the face of no other opposition, no other reason really for existence. They are the only ones that count. It's a dangerous game, and Charles lost. It's just as simple as that. I don't have much sympathy with him. So, okay, sorry, Charles I Society people, I just don't agree with you. So there it is. I hope you liked it. It's a pretty interesting story. And if you did, please give me a like, subscribe, please, and hit the notification bell. And I'll see you at the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.